As you know, on Sunday night or Monday morning of every week, we post a new expository semiotics explaining why we would choose which lectionary readings. But in these readings, our dream is, and our desire is, to help you read the signs and fondle the details and spot the seminal metaphors, the condensed signs and the stories that are key for preaching to a digital culture. So strap on your seatbelt and join us as we prospect our passages for today. This is my 100th lectionary vlog for Preach the Story, the 20th of February, 2022. And I just want to begin by thanking you for encouraging me to do this, for being faithful to me in doing this, for all of your comments. A few of you write right here on the YouTube channel, but others of you email me, you text me, you message me, you give me feedback and pushback, and I'm so grateful for all of you because we are a learning community together. And discipleship formation doesn't take place individually, but communally. And you are part of my community of learning, and for that I'm grateful. So, 100th vlog, thank you. Thank you for sticking with me and for keeping my arms lifted in a variety of ways, supporting me in every way possible. Our lectionary passages today, I'm just going to tell you right up in the beginning, I'm picking the first one, which in many ways may be the hardest one. But this is the story of Joseph being sold into slavery. The other ones are great. The Psalm is 37, and that is a beautiful song of making justice shine like the light, like the justice, like the sun at noonday, and I could go on and on. The gospel reading is from Luke 6, which is really a continuation of what we talked about last week. And the epistle reading is from 1 Corinthians 15, and focus on the resurrection and what does it mean that their dead are raised in Christ. And the way in which Jesus, the last Adam, comes from the divine, from up, down. Adam, the first Adam, comes from the dirt, the ground, up. And Paul creates this beautiful parallelism here that is spectacular. And I was almost tempted to go there. But I'm going to do the story of Joseph from Genesis 45, 3 to 11, and then verse 15. Let me read it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, so dismayed were they at his presence. Now, you remember the story that Jacob has 12 sons, the last two sons by Rachel, the one that he thought he was marrying before Laban tricked him. And this whole family story is one of trickery and deceit and deception and betrayal. I mean, it's unbelievable. It actually begins with Jacob. You'd think he'd be sensitive to this with Jacob and Esau. But the betrayal and deception continues on. And so there's 12 sons. Joseph is the 11th, and Jacob's favorite because he's the firstborn of Rachel, the love of his life. And so he favors Joseph, and he privileges Joseph above the other brothers and gives him this incredible coat of many colors, and does things, and Joseph doesn't help because he brags to his brothers about all these favors his father's getting. He actually tells them of a dream where he is over them, and so they betray him by selling him to, initially plotting to kill him, but then thought better of it, and so sold him into slavery, and he was purchased by Potiphar. And you know that whole story of the wife of, and what happens with that whole incident. So it's an incredible story, family drama. As I said, there's no non-dysfunctional family in the Bible. Find me one family in the Bible that was functional and didn't have a problem. So we have Joseph being sold to the men on this caravan that's headed for Egypt, and they sell Joseph as a slave, and then they dip his beautiful coat in blood of a goat, and they tell their father that Joseph has been killed. Well, Joseph hasn't been killed, and this is the rest of the story here, our reading for today. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come closer to me," and they came closer. These are the very brothers that betrayed him and plotted to kill him and then sold him into slavery. He said, "I am your brother, Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years. There are 5 more years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God has made me a father to Pharaoh and Lord of all his house and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry up and go to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not delay. You shall settle in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children and your children's children, as well as your flocks, your herds, and all that you have. I will provide for you there, since there are 5 more years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have will not come to poverty.' And he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. After that, his brothers talked with him." They finally were able to say something. You meant it for evil, but God meant it and used it for good. I want to talk today a little bit about something that every one of you knows about. And it's not going to be a comfortable conversation. And that is betrayal. Everyone listening to me right now knows betrayal. And Jesus knew betrayal. Now you say, "Oh, of course he did. That's the whole story of Judas." No. It wasn't just Judas. Read Matthew 26:56. Then all the disciples forsook him and fled. It wasn't just Judas who betrayed Jesus. They all of them betrayed Jesus. This is one of the reasons why Jesus has a hangout separate from his disciples and why he has a best friend that's not part of the 12. I mean, who was his best friend? Lazarus. Not part of the 12. Lazarus, Mary, Martha, Bethany, his favorite place to escape and hang out, a sanctuary of sorts, because your inner circle will betray you. Not just one, they all will betray you. They will find ways to critique you and cut you down and say things that you didn't, that you told in confidence. And so Jesus knows this and he anticipates this. And all of us ought to have a friendship with certain people outside of our staff and our inner circle. I'll never forget having, early in my ministry, I learned this the hard way. I had a district superintendent. It was not mine, but another. And we were just conversing. And he told me something. And I said to him, "Bob, are you sure you should tell me that? I feel a little comfortable that maybe I shouldn't know that." He said, "Oh, well, the person told me not to tell anyone." I said, "Well, why are you telling me?" He said, "Oh, don't you know that when somebody tells you not to tell anyone, they're really inviting you to tell others? Because they want you to spread it, not them?" I said, "No, I didn't. I never knew that." And that's when it hit me. We have a Mirandized ministry. Remember the Miranda rule? that is read to everybody who is arrested and under suspicion. You have the right to remain silent because what you say can and will be used against you. We have a Mirandized ministry. What we say can and will be used against us, both publicly and privately and personally. And this is the challenge of facing betrayal. We all betray Jesus too. It's not just the 12 disciples that are betraying him. We betray him every day. Every time we make a decision with our wallets, it's a question, is this going to be faithful to Jesus or is this going to betray Jesus? There are many ways of betrayal, many levels of betrayal. And we, like the disciples, betray him. I mean, even Paul, the good that I would, I do not, and the evil that I would not, I do. Now, we're familiar with the Peter betrayal. And Peter's betrayal is like a lot of our betrayals. But Peter said, Jesus, I will lay down my life for you. I will defend you to the death. And he proved that he would. Remember, and when they came to arrest you, he immediately goes to defend Jesus with a sword, and, which means he was armed, okay? And he takes off Malchus' ear, which Jesus has to put back on and reattach. And so Peter is willing to lay down his life for his Lord, but he won't lay down his reputation in front of a little servant girl. And see, it's the little things that trip us up, not the big things. Many times we won't betray Jesus on the big things, but it's the little things. And we hear that in Matthew, in Mark, Luke, and John about the cock crowing. In Mark, we find out the cock crowing twice, but we don't even get this one right because before the cock crows, in Jesus' day, the cock crowed twice. Not like today, just before dawn. They had roosters that crowed twice. One was between 12 and 1, which is about the first time that you have two sleeps often in history. And the first one from sundown till just after midnight or 1 o'clock, and the cock would crow a little bit then. It wouldn't be that loud, but then the second crow of the rooster, the crowing that took place about 3 a.m. Just before dawn. That's before the cock crows twice, and that was the second crowing. So it's still dark, but there's dawn. And I think in some way, Peter, when he does betray Jesus in front of Caiaphas' servant in the courtyard, there's still hope here because there's dawn. It's still dark, but there's dawn coming. And Peter hopes and anticipates his forgiveness and his restoration. The Miranda rule is one that unfortunately is prevalent in the church. The seal of the confession is maybe kept in the Roman Catholic Church, but when we confess to one another, it can circulate fairly quickly. And sometimes, I want to put it in another way too, sometimes what looks to the world like betrayal is actually faithfulness. The motto of the French resistance to Germany from 1940 to 1945, to obey is to betray, to disobey is to serve. And the tragedy is that only 1% of the French population participated in the resistance to Hitler. In other words, they obeyed, but that was to betray this crazy genocidal ruler, and to disobey him would have been to serve and to be faithful. Paul puts it Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. That's 1 Corinthians 13, 6-7. We seem to love to critique each other, to tear each other down, to spread the bad news, not the good news. The gossiping is not the good gossiping that lifts each other up. Did you hear the award that so-and-so got? But it's the negative God. What did Gore Vidal say? Every time a friend of mine succeeds, I die a little. See, this is the betrayal, even of friendships, by our jealousies and by our resentments. And how come it didn't happen to me? And so betrayal here is a huge issue that Joseph discovered in his own life. But he also discovered that what seems to be and what is betrayal, even of the worst sort, God can use for God's glory and God's goodness. And here in this incredible passage, you meant it for evil. You meant it to actually kill me and to get rid of me. But God meant it for good, and because of this. Now, God didn't tell Reuben and the others to Israel, and Judah was really the ringleader here, but Judah to kill Joseph. But their jealousy and their resentment did. But God used that for the glory of God and to save Israel, and to save and to preserve the 12 tribes. The biggest betrayals, as Jesus found out with his own 12, the biggest betrayals are often come from within, and they're dealt in the name of Jesus. The biggest blows we get that hurt the hardest are allegedly done in Jesus's name. How many times does somebody come up with a creative idea or just an idea about a biblical interpretation of a passage that they think that, wow, what about this? And they're using their, what I call their sanctified imagination. Others call it their sacred imagination. But they're just using it and wondering, well, what if this? And immediately, we have a hair trigger for heresy. And we immediately go off on one another. And how in the world can he say that? And what in the world is he doing that? What's happened now? And Jesus didn't have a hair trigger for heresy. I don't think Jesus is honored when his followers face off, cross the gutter. Jesus went into gutters, but not to throw mud and bile at each other, but to apply salve and healing ointment and to bring salvation. I don't believe anyone's spiritual instincts will lead anyone to bring anybody down. They will lead you to lift up people. And if somebody be overtaken in a fault, you who are spiritual, restore that person in a spirit of what? Meekness. It's hard. Jesus was silent when accused as opposed to defending himself or attacking back. And that's why the cross is so hard for us to understand today. But when Jesus is being lifted up, even in the midst of our being betrayed by those closest to us, and even by those we love the most and have done the most for, even in that pain and anguish, when we lift up Christ, that resentment, that mean-spirited, self-righteous anger that wants to get even, that is natural to all of us and that raises its ugly head in all of us, begins to be beaten back by the love of Christ and by the forgiveness and grace of Jesus, who gave us the witness of the cross. That when we are being betrayed the most by the world and even by our own inner circle, by our own disciples, that's when God can do God's greatest work to save those very people from themselves and to save the world.